Hey family, welcome back. MarshaunO here, your favorite relationship strategist. And I help Christian women that are married or in long-term relationships to stop feeling disconnected and unloved and shift you to feeling heard, understood, and appreciated. Now, in today's video, we will be discussing the second part of maturity and why it matters in love. Now, if you missed the video from the other day, we talked about maturity, but we talked about, are you in a mature relationship? So after you finish this video, definitely go back and check out, are you in a mature relationship? Again, today's topic, we will be discussing the maturity and why it is important in love. You see, a lot of us get into these relationships. And as I mentioned before, if you're anything like me, if you were brought up anything like I was, then you were not taught how to be in a relationship, what maturity and what maturity is and why you actually need it to be in a healthy, successful relationship, and especially a healthy marriage, because being mature is the only way that you two are going to reach the pivotal point of being in an extraordinary relationship that only the top 1% of couples experience. Most people are in turmoil. Most times they're in toxic relationships. And if you're not a mature person, then there is no way that you can be in a mature relationship, because at some point the immaturity within yourself is going to show up, it is going to show out, and it is absolutely going to kill the love within your relationship. So maturity and why it matters in love. I'm going to give you 7 things to think about. Let's go ahead and jump into the first one. The first one, it is that maturity has the ability to forgive their partner when it is needed. And guess what? Being a mature person and being in a mature relationship also allows for the negative feelings to dissipate. See, when you're in a mature relationship, anytime you guys are arguing or anytime you feel some type of way about something, you can open up about your feelings. You can open up honestly. You don't have to hold anything back. You can just open up and just be you and say, hey, baby, when we were having that discussion, I did not like when you said this because it made me feel like that. I don't want to feel like that because it reminds me of the time that when I was growing up, I felt like X, Y, and Z. What I would rather you do is actually do this. So did you catch that template right there? You telling him your feelings, you also telling him or her your problem, right? You're also saying why you feel that way when he or she does the thing. And then the third part of the template is now you're giving them a solution, because many of us go to our spouses and partners with only the problem. There is no solution in sight, which is why we don't feel like this thing is ever resolved. You must go to your partner and express the thing that is bothering you, absolutely. But then you must also bring a solution to it. And here's the caveat. It does not mean that your partner is going to agree with the thing that you were speaking about. But if you guys can have open banter, right? This is what a mature couple would actually do. Go back and forth so you can say, okay, well, I don't really like that. I can't promise that I can do that thing, but I can do this thing, right? And so there is going to be some type of compromise, not all the time, but sometimes it will be. So just because you bring a solution to the actual conversation does not mean that your partner is going to jump on board, but it does open up the door for the possibility of your partner opening up and you actually, both of you, coming to a resolution about that thing. The second thing to determine maturity and why it is important in love is because it enables the couple to stick it out when times get tough. And trust me when I say times are going to get tough. Relationships, marriages are not for the faint at heart. If you have thin skin, you will constantly take things personally. You will feel like you're always being attacked. And if you are a person that has thin skin, you will at some point destroy the relationship, because you can't handle the things that are coming out your partner's mouth. You can't handle those tough conversations that your partner wants to have. You can't handle the dialogue that is supposed to occur between two people that are just having a conversation about the things that they like, about the things that they dislike, about the things that you're doing right, about the things that you need to work on, the areas that you need to tighten up in, become better at, become more mature and responsible by doing them. Right? So when you're in a mature relationship, these are the types of conversations that you can have. But you must work on yourself in order to get to that level so you're not taking things personally. So you can look past what he or she is actually saying, how they're saying it, and look toward, okay, the delivery sucked. Your delivery really sucked. But he actually made a valid point when he said, fill in the blank. He made a valid point. That is something that I need to be better at. For example, if your partner comes to you and say, you know what? You nag so much. This is something that I hear often. You nag too much about everything. About everything. I don't feel like I could do anything right. Right? And so maybe they're not even saying it as nice as I am articulating it right now. Maybe they said it the nastiest way that they can actually say it. Well, you as the mature person needs to be able to look past the delivery and actually say, okay, the delivery sucked. Excuse me. Yes, indeed. But I heard you. I'm going to work in that area. I nag about everything. So now you need to come up with solutions on how you can stop being that nag that your partner sees you as. Because here's the thing that maybe you didn't even think about. If your partner is seeing you as a nag, he or she is not seeing you as the loving teammate. They're seeing you and even putting you in the place of their parent. And it's usually the mom, but could be the parent or guardian who was always getting you to do things that you did not want to do because he or she said that you must do it because I'm the parent. I said do it because I said do it. Like there is no explanation. So when you start to nag your now spouse, you become and even look like the nagging parent, i.e. their nagging parent. And nobody is falling in love if you're sane, right, with your parent. So tighten up. Look past what was actually, look past how they said it, the delivery of it, and think about, focus on what was actually said, what was articulated, what is the area that you need to work on. The third thing, maturity and why it matters in love. Mature people will accept responsibility for their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors. See, mature people do not look for somebody else to blame. Usually their spouse, because we're talking about a romantic relationship here, right? So if you're always looking at everything that goes wrong, it's always your partner's fault. Sorry to break it to you. You are not as mature as you believe that you are because nobody does everything right in their relationship. Nobody. So if your tendency is always to point the finger at the other person, then you need to check yourself, sis. You need to check yourself, bruh, because you're not as mature as you think you are. And it does take a mature person to own up to their faults. It takes a mature person to own up to their responsibilities and their behaviors and the way that they made their partners feel. Now, that's a different story because you only feel the way that you feel. I'm not going to even go into that. Whatever. So you must own up to your responsibilities. And one of the things that I really want to bring to your attention is I believe that many couples get break up and actually go through divorces by not saying the two words, which is I'm sorry. If you actually own up to your responsibilities a lot more, you would be able to alleviate so much of that tension into your relationship and or marriage. So much tension could actually go. But here's the thing. You can't just say I'm sorry and not mean it. You must say I'm sorry and absolutely mean it. And then work on being better in that area, specifically on that thing that you said I'm sorry for. Like, because after a time, if you're still constantly saying I'm sorry, but you're still creating and doing the same thing over and over again, i.e. that same behavior, then at some point I'm going to stop believing that you are sorry. At some point you have to realize that you are making the same choices. And obviously, if we're talking about it, it's a bad choice in my eyes. And if it's not something that you can actually correct, maybe you and your partner are not meant to be together. And I know that that's one instance and that's one scenario. However, what I also know is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you cannot own up to your responsibilities, if you cannot say I'm sorry, not only are you not able to say it to me as your partner, you're also not doing it out in the world as well, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So you must take responsibility. Mature people take responsibility for how they're showing up, for their feelings, their thoughts, and their behaviors. Number 4, maturity has the ability to truly commit to the relationship for life and understand what that commitment actually means. Because it's not when you feel like going home to your spouse that you actually go home. It's not a feeling. Commitment is not a feeling, right? Because there's a lot of times you're not going to feel like going home to your spouse because they pissed you off. not realizing that you're allowing yourself to be pissed off. But just like I mentioned before, that's a different video, right? It's a different video. It's a different topic altogether. So you must understand that you must be committed to the relationship, not when you feel like you want to be there. Listen, let's just be transparent. There have been plenty of times in my current marriage where I am ready to not be here because we're arguing over stupid things in my eyes. Not saying sorry fast enough. It's a cycle. It's a cycle and it gets old. Somebody has to man up. Somebody has to woman up and understand that this is a commitment. Not saying, you know what, when things are not going well, you know what, let's get a divorce. Let's break up. Not realizing how you are crippling the foundation in your relationship or in your marriage by always talking about, well, maybe we should break up. Maybe we should get a divorce. At some point, that partner that's taking that in is going to say, you know what, you're right. We should. And then you're going to be looking like, but I mean that. You have to man up and understand. When I say man up, I mean woman up as well. Understand that when you're in a relationship and when you're in a commitment, you have to commit to it when you feel like it and when you do not feel like it. When you want to go home and when you don't want to go home. When you start to get that wandering eye, you have to correct yourself. Your spouse cannot do it for you. Again, that's that control. You must have self-control and understand that person that you decided to say I do to, or I'm going to be in this long-term relationship with, is the person that you actually be in the long-term relationship with, forsaking all others, because it is a commitment that you are making through good times and bad times, through sickness and health, etc. Remember your vows. Remember them. This is maturity and why it matters in love. Absolutely why it matters in love. The fifth thing is that partners have reasonable expectations about the relationship, the marriage, and your partner. You have to have reasonable expectations. As we call them in the business world, they are SMART goals. SMART goals, right? And you'll have to look up the acronym. I'm not going to go through here, but SMART, SMART goals. But look them up. Manageable, right? Anyway, I'm not going to go through the list. Look it up if you want to understand what the SMART goals actually stand for. But having healthy expectations in your relationship is something that you absolutely should have. It is something that is expected of you. And it's also something that you should be articulating, the things that you want, the things that you need in your relationship in order for your relationship to be a successful one for you. In order for you to feel like, okay, I can stay here. I can be happy here. I can remain here. I can actually build a life with this man or with this woman. Healthy expectations, not just something that you're thinking, you know, whatever your list is. Okay. I'm not even going to go down the road. Number 6, allowing for openness in all things, whether you like them or not. Right. And then of course, allow conflicts to be more respectfully understood and resolved, because anytime, as I mentioned before, anytime we have conflicts and they are not resolved, this is why your partner or spouse, usually the woman, keeps bringing this thing up, because they do not feel that they were heard, understood, and the conflict, the issue, the problem was never resolved. There was never a solution there. It keeps happening over and over again. So at some point, you need to go back to the drawing board and say, you know what? I thought that this was resolved, but obviously she keep bringing this up. Again, it could be a he, but this one usually falls for the woman, because you feel like she keeps nagging you. You feel like you had that conversation. And why do we keep having this conversation over and over again? Well, I'm here to tell you, to enlighten you, that you keep having that conversation because that problem, that issue was never resolved. There was never a solution, and or you keep doing it. So now I got to keep reliving this thing. How do we get past it? We get past it by allowing your spouse to actually release all of the feelings about that thing, about how it made him or her feel in that moment, why they do not like it, right? And then here is the solution. This, if you actually feel in that template every time you have a conflict, then guess what? There will be so much more peace in your life, so much more peace in your relationship, so much more peace in your marriage. You will rewrite your relationship. Again, that top 1% of couples that have extraordinary relationships, you will begin to be a part of that, because then you're like, well, dang, I actually like this relationship. I chose a good partner. But it all comes down to you and the way that you communicate, and you're becoming a better communicator. You're able to articulate the things that you want, articulate the things that you need, and your spouse is able to hear you and even understand you and even put themselves in your shoes to say, I got you. It's my bad. I really understand what you were trying to say. Thank you for that, because now I really understand what I was doing wrong, and now I can correct it. Right? So sometimes we think that it's our partner, it's all our partner's fault, but sometimes you don't articulate it well because you have not taken the time to literally put pen to paper about the things that you're feeling about this thing. See, we think it's silly. We think that, I should just be able to tell him or tell her what I want to say. Well, guess what? When it's two people and you're going back and forth, a lot of times you're cut off and you forget what you're going to say. But if you pen it, if you write it down beforehand, right? And what I mean by beforehand is after the argument, right? And now you had time to think about things. And then you're like, oh, this is why this made me feel this way. Let me write this down, right? And then when you go back to your spouse, it's like, okay, that argument sucked. Here's the part that I played in it. My bad, I'm sorry. But here's why I'm feeling this way. This is why I'm so passionate when this thing comes up, because this is the way that it makes me feel. I don't like the way that this makes me feel. Can you do this? You see, I just did the template right there several times during this video. If you get that one thing right, you will be in a mature relationship. Your partner will start to mimic the things that you are actually doing. And guess what? You can actually say, hey, hold on. Can you actually do it this way? Or you can ask more questions. You can start to be the leader, to be the more mature person. This is why maturity matters in love. It's not a game. It's not a game. You are fighting to build a legacy so we can stop this divorce rate. We can decrease it. The seventh and final way to understand why maturity is needed in love is because you contribute to the relationship and are able to personally search for solutions to the problems that arise. Because problems are constantly going to come. But guess what? Once you are maturing, you're able to even think about that template that I just keep doing throughout this entire almost 20-minute video. You can say, I got it. There is a problem. I see what the problem is. Now let's talk about what the solution is. And so as many times as problems and conflicts come up, you're not running away from them. This is what mature people do. They don't run away from the problems when they come. They tackle them head on. They get rid of them as soon as possible. They do not allow a lot of distance to pass. They do not go to bed in separate beds. They do not, go to bed at separate times. Maybe you do, whatever. It depends on your sleep schedule. But the point is, you actually get this thing under control so both of you can feel good about the relationship, about the choices that you made in one another. Because again, that coming together as one can be very, very hard, especially if you never made an intentional action with how action with how you are showing up. You have to be intentional about destroying all of that negativity and toxicity within your relationship. I'm MarshaunO, your favorite relationship strategist, and I help Christian women that are married or in long-term relationships to stop feeling disconnected and unloved and shift you to feeling heard, understood, and appreciated, because we are here to decrease the divorce rate one conversation at a time. So you can show up and be better, do better, so you can be a part of the top 1% of couples that have extraordinary relationships. I love you guys, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And I will see you in the next video. Bye now.